He refused every woman until an Apache widow asked, "You want a wife or only shelter?" Ethan Cole was a man of few words, known across the frontier as the cowboy who had everything a woman could hope for: broad shoulders, steady eyes, and a voice calm enough to settle a panicked horse. But no one could claim him. Since the war had ended and the dust had settled over the ruins of his past, he lived alone on the outskirts of the territory, fixing fences, trading cattle, and guarding his heart tighter than the gun on his hip. Folks in town whispered about him, how he pushed away every woman who tried to reach him, how even the preacher's daughter couldn't soften him. Ethan believed love was a luxury no man dared rely on in a world carved from loss. One late summer evening, riding along the canyon trail, he spotted smoke rising on the horizon. Not the gentle smoke of a campfire, this was the dark, heavy smoke of burning homes. He urged his horse forward, hooves striking the dry earth. When he reached the clearing, what he saw hollowed him deep inside. A small Apache camp had been ambushed, the ground still warm from gunfire. Amid the wreckage stood a woman, her face streaked with soot, arms wrapped around two small children. She didn't weep or shout. She stood like a lone cedar after a storm bent, never broken. Ethan dismounted, stepping carefully toward her. "You need help?" he asked softly. Her eyes, as sharp as obsidian, met his without fear. "I need a shovel," she answered. He passed her one from his saddlebag, and together they buried the fallen her husband among them. They spoke no words until the sun disappeared behind the hills. When darkness settled, the woman finally said, "You ride alone." Easy thing to do when no one waits for you. He didn't reply. Instead, he built a small fire for her and the children, sharing what food he carried. She accepted with a nod, but kept her distance. Her name, he learned later, was Arya, a widow, half Apache, half settler belonging to two worlds that wanted neither. Come morning, Ethan saddled his horse to leave, but Arya stepped forward. "You came when no one else did," she said. "If you leave now, the next men won't show mercy." Her voice carried no begging, just truth. Ethan glanced at the young girl gripping her mother's skirt, and the boy trying to look brave with a stick held like a rifle. He exhaled, that old ache in his chest stirring again. "I'll take you to my place," he said quietly. "Stay till you know what comes next." So it began. For weeks, they lived in an uneasy peace on Ethan's ranch. Arya worked from dawn till dusk keeping the fire lit, preparing meals, helping around the corral. She never asked for anything, never complained, never sought sympathy. Ethan watched her with a quiet respect. She moved with the dignity born from deep wounds, and in her silence, he recognized his own loneliness reflected back at him. The children, Lily and Thomas, slowly filled the cold spaces between them with laughter and warmth, but as the days shortened, the town began to chatter. Some called Arya a curse. Others accused her of stealing a man's heart. When Ethan went for supplies, men sneered, asking if he'd softened. He ignored them until one night when a ranch hand muttered a slur too harsh to repeat. Ethan's fist struck before the man could finish. Blood spilled, and by the time the sheriff arrived, Ethan was already home, pacing outside the cabin, fist still trembling. Arya stepped out, face calm under the moonlight. "You didn't have to fight for me," she murmured. "I didn't," he said. "I fought because they don't know the truth." "And what truth is that?" she asked. "That you're stronger than any of us." He answered, for the first time. She smiled, small, but true. The next morning, she found him repairing the fence line. She watched in silence for a long moment before finally asking, "You turned away every woman who came your way. Why let me stay?" Ethan glanced up, meeting her gaze. "Because you never asked to." The days slipped into autumn, and though no words of affection passed between them, something quiet and unspoken grew. Ethan caught himself listening for her voice, watching her hands work, noticing how the afternoon light touched her hair. Arya noticed the way he looked after her children, how he taught Toma to ride and coaxed Lily into laughing again. Yet she also saw the fear in him, the kind that kept a man from reaching for anything he might lose. One evening, as a storm formed on the horizon, she stepped outside and found him on the porch, staring into the darkening plains. The air was heavy, carrying more than just rain. She sat beside him and asked, "You want a wife or only shelter?" The question rumbled between them like distant thunder. Ethan turned toward her. "I'm not sure I remember how to want anything at all." Arya gave a sad, gentle smile. "Then maybe you should learn again." Lighting lit the grasslands, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt breath return to something inside him. But neither of them knew the past they'd buried was already rising. The The storm shattered the night, and with it came the ghosts Ethan feared. A band of bounty riders appeared along the edge of his land, faces set like stone, voices colder than the wind. They weren't after Ethan, they wanted Aya. They claimed her people had aided raids on settlers and demanded she be handed over. Ethan stood his ground on the porch, rifle steady, rain running off his hat. She's not going anywhere, the leader spat in the mud. You ready to die for her, cowboy? Ethan didn't flinch. Already did, chaos exploded. Hooves thundered, gunfire cracked, and the roar of the storm drowned every scream. Ethan fought like a man driven by something far deeper than rage. Aya refused to hide. She seized her husband's old bow and joined the battle, her aim true even through the rain. When the storm finally eased, the ground was streaked with blood and water, and only the wind dared move. Ethan collapsed to his knees, injured but alive. Aya rushed to him, pressing her hands against the wound. You fool, she whispered. You should let me go. He winced, half smiling. You asked if I wanted a wife or shelter. I know the answer now. She looked at him, tears mixing with the rain. And I want both, he breathed. If it's you. She said nothing at first. Then she leaned in and rested her forehead gently against his. The storm calmed, as if the sky itself released a sigh. By dawn, the danger had passed, and Ethan's wounds were cared for. The children slept safely inside. Aya stepped outside the cabin, watching the first sunlight break through the clouds. For the first time in years, hope stirred in her chest. Weeks drifted into months. The land healed, the rumors died, and life found rhythm again. Ethan repaired the fences and taught Homer the ranch work. Aya planted wildflowers near the resting place of her people, honoring what was lost but never forgotten. One golden evening on the prairie, Ethan walked to her with a small turquoise ring he'd carved by hand. You once said you didn't need saving, he murmured. You were right. You saved me instead. She stared at the ring, then at him. You sure about this, cowboy? He nodded. I've been sure since the day you asked me that question. She slid the ring onto her finger and smiled. Then maybe it's time we stop surviving and start living. So they did. Two souls stitched together by loss, fire, and the quiet strength of love. The man who once refused every woman finally found the one who never asked for his heart. He just reminded him he still had one. The prairie wind carried their laughter across the plains, a reminder that sometimes the hardest hearts soften not through passion, but through the steady courage of someone who refuses to give up on them.